Hi there, Room 308. Today we're going to be getting started officially with our poetry writing unit. I hope that last week you enjoyed getting to kind of get your toes wet and practice different types of poetry and experiment with all different sorts of things. So today I'm trying out something new. I'm trying to record over a PowerPoint presentation. So bear with me, this is my first time trying this and I hope it goes really well. I hope you guys like having the visual information presented to you and that it hopefully makes your own independent writing time more successful and that you feel like you have the tools that you need to get started on your own. Okay, so here we go. The first thing that I want you to think about is when you're flipping through a book, maybe you have a bookshelf at home, or maybe if you're thinking back to our bookshelf in the classroom, I want you to think about what makes a poem a poem. So when you're flipping through and you find a book, how do you know that that book contains poetry? So this is where I want you to pause the video and think about what makes a poem a poem. Now, of course, there's a lot of things that make a poem, and some of the things that you thought of just now, I might not mention in this slide, but that doesn't mean that your answer was wrong. So I want you to keep that in mind, right? There are so many possible answers here, and I'm just highlighting a few of them. So sometimes poems have short lines. Poems sometimes have rhyming words. And a poem doesn't usually take up the whole page like you see when you're writing or reading a story. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a poem out loud to you, and I'm going to have it displayed up on the screen on PowerPoint. And I want you to think a little bit more as you're reading along with me about what makes a poem a poem. Oops, I missed one. A poem gives you a picture in your head. So this poem is called Feeling Ill. I thought that it was kind of interesting how this poem kind of fits how a lot of people might be feeling right now, especially if they're recovering, right? Feeling ill. Lying in the middle of the bed, waiting for the clock to change, flicking my toes on the sheets, watching an airplane cross the window, staring at the glare of the light, smelling the orange on the table, counting the flowers on the curtain, holding my head in my hand, hearing the steps on the stairs, lying in the middle of the bed, waiting for the clock to change. Now I want you to think, what did you imagine as you were listening to this poem called Feeling Ill? What were some things, if you closed your eyes and you listened to that poem, what are some things that you imagined? Go ahead and pause the video and think about it. Maybe some of you imagine that same feeling from the last time you had a cold or the flu, when you're kind of achy and you're tired and you're in bed. Maybe you thought about the sensory details that were happening in the poem. So what sensory details did the poet include to let you see what was happening and let you hear and feel and smell and taste? This is something we talked so much about in class when we're writing spicy sentences. Think about the sensory details that specifically came up in this poem. For example, smelling the orange on the table made me imagine the smell as I'm sitting here listening at my computer. Maybe you started to feel a headache when the poet was writing, holding my head with my hand. Or maybe you can really understand that feeling of waiting for the clock to change and making you think about how long it seems to take when you're sick and you want to just really badly want to feel better. So most poems that you come across are going to contain those sensory details, letting you use your senses to try to paint a picture in your mind and maybe even sometimes really feel those same things that the author is feeling. So I have a slide here called Notes About Poems, and I'm going to add to it as we go along throughout the unit. So the first thing that I have on our list is that poems have sensory details that help us see, hear, smell, taste, and feel what is happening. And I'll add to this list as we go along and learn more. You might already even have some ideas of things that you think should be on this list. So I want you to think, what else might make a poem a poem? Go ahead and pause the video and think about what else you notice when you come across poems. Now, there's a lot of things that you could have said to answer this question. And I've only captured a couple of them. So if your answer's not on this list, no worries. It doesn't mean that it's wrong. So I added in that some poems rhyme and some poems have short lines. So I want you to imagine that we're writing a poem like Feeling Ill, but it's called Feeling Happy. What sensory details might we include in the poem to help a reader see, hear, smell, taste, and feel what makes us feel really happy? So I want you to notice, I'm going to have a slide with the poem on it again. A lot of the words, or all of the words, that the author used at the start of each line were verbs or action words that show you're doing an action or doing something. And all of the verbs end in ing. Lying in the middle of the bed, waiting for the clock to change, flicking my toes on the sheets, watching an airplane cross the window, staring at the glare of the light, smelling the orange on the table, counting the flowers on the curtain, holding my head with my hand, hearing the steps on the stairs, lying in the middle of the bed, waiting for the clock to change. And I just noticed I actually have a typo there. It's not supposed to say sitars, it's stairs. So if we were to model a poem about feeling happy after the poem about feeling ill, what types of verbs might we use when we feel happy? So some ideas when I brainstormed, and you can totally pause right now and brainstorm on your own first if you don't want me to spoil any ideas. But some ideas that I wrote about feeling happy were eating fresh strawberries, kicking a soccer ball, feeling puppy kisses on my cheeks, giggling with my little brother, smelling a bundt cake fresh out of the oven, hearing and dancing to my favorite song, or tasting a nice bowl of macaroni and cheese. Those are all things that make me feel really happy. Now, of course, the same things that make me feel really happy aren't going to be the same things that make you feel really happy, right? Maybe you prefer cats instead of dogs. Maybe you don't like cake. Maybe instead you're more of a creme brulee type of person. So you're going to come up with your own list about things that make you feel happy. Or actually, sorry, pause and rewind. Yours not going to be about happy. What you're going to do is you're going to choose another idea, another feeling. So if you want to do happy and come up with your own words about happy, you can totally do that. But I'm going to have you do a quick write about that feeling. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to choose another feeling to write about. So maybe you want to write about feeling sad, angry, silly, or even bored. A lot of you that I've talked to over email right now, being in your house, a lot of you have been feeling kind of bored. Maybe that's a nice one to write about right now. Maybe a lot of you have felt really peaceful, and maybe sometimes we've even felt sad. I've found from experience writing poems that writing about feelings that we feel really strongly not only helps us emotionally to kind of release those feelings and become more peaceful with them, especially if they're a negative emotion, but it also creates really nice poetry if you're feeling something really powerfully. So the first thing you're going to do, you're going to choose a feeling to write about, okay? You're going to write a list of verbs that end in ing, about the emotion that you chose that you might want to include in your poem. Remember, this is a quick write. No one's reading this other than you. It's just to get your ideas flowing. So you're not writing a poem right now. What you're doing is writing more of a list. Eating strawberries, feeling puppy kisses. So remember, don't erase, don't go back, don't worry about your spelling. You're just writing down things that make you feel your emotion that you chose. Now that you have your list, you're going to go ahead and move on to writing time. So this is just like in class, the same expectations. So when we write for independent writing, we write for 20 to 30 minutes. Sometimes we even write for more. It might feel a little challenging right now. This is maybe the first time you're jumping back in and having to really sit down and concentrate. Know that that's totally okay if it feels more challenging than it usually does, but it's a good idea to kind of get back into this routine of being able to do this on your own. So I want you in your writing time to start with writing more lines to create a poem that's similar to feeling ill, but it might be feeling sad or feeling joyful or something like that, whatever you chose. If you finish that poem before 20 to 30 minutes, you can write another poem similar to feeling ill, or you can write another style poem of your choosing. A great idea here to keep track of your time, because normally I have the timer up on the board for you, and I can't do that for you right now. So what you could do is, if you are maybe in your kitchen, maybe there's a microwave, and you can write down the time that you started at the top of your notebook. Or maybe you have some sort of device that has a timer on it, like an old iPod or iPhone, or maybe if one of your family members isn't working right now, you could use their device. But try to independently keep track of your time here. And know that it's important to keep your writing stamina strong, okay? I know you can do this. I'm so excited to see what you write. Don't forget to share your Office 365 documents with me if you're doing this on the computer, or if you want, you can type them after you write them on paper, or you can maybe take a picture of it and send it to me. It's of course not required, totally optional. Okay, just wanted to give that option. I'm going to go ahead and go to the last slide so that you can get ready. And it's basically saying, feel free to share your poetry with your friends, your family, your classmates, if you're meeting with people on Zoom or chatting on the phone. Maybe you have a weekly call with someone in your family who lives far away. I'm sure they would love to hear it. You can hear a little puppy in the background. That is all I have for you today. If you want, at any point, you can rewind this video and go back and look at the poem, Feeling Ill, or click back and look at the instructions from the previous slides. Just go ahead and scroll back at the bottom and pause it. Okay? I'm so excited to see what you write. Bye!